someone took me to the farm where they grow their hops. They're handing out free ale samples. I think I've had like 12 so far. No matter how many times I go back, they keep giving me another one. And here's number 13. Outsmarted him again, Bram.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Tiny Blue Games. My name, of course, is Seesaw or Chris, and today we're talking about Guild Wars 2 in 2019. Today we're doing a part 2 of the first episode of this new season of Living World of Guild Wars 2. I did a first video to this about a month ago, or maybe 2, when it first came out, and this is the second one that I'm doing, kind of covering the rest of the story, giving a bit of a summary, as the newest episode, Whispers in the Dark, is coming out this week on Tuesday, or should already be out. But yeah, so as you can see, I was enjoying the story quite a bit, but just before we get into that, I wanted to talk about one of the newer features added to the game, which is build templates. This is something that Guild Wars 2 has been hoping for quite a while, because you do really end up changing your build quite a bit in Guild Wars 2, not only between game types, but between different bosses. You might change depending on a different comp that you're running for a raid. Say there's a certain buff that you are providing, and then all of a sudden you switch your party up and there's someone else who's filling that buff. Well, you can then maybe go pure DPS instead of being, support or something like that. So there is quite a bit of opportunity for you to have different builds in Guild Wars 2, and it's definitely something that is quite useful. Now, prior to this being added to the official game, there was a way you could change builds through a third-party add-on called Arc DPS. This used to be, or still is, the main DPS that a lot of people use, DPS meter that is, and there was an extension to that that would have build templates that you could easily swap out your builds. So a lot of people were using that in between, and now that there's an official one, that one's kind of gone away. The issue being that the official one isn't as great as some people would hope. It works really well, it just, you need to buy more slots to make it function very well. So there was a bit of an uproar about this when it first came out. They have added a option to buy build storage expansion, as you can see right here, for free, to add a little bit more storage to that. And we'll see how things continue, but it definitely hit things a bit sour when it first came out, and people weren't really expecting that, even though, it was, fairly explicitly said that there might be a cost associated with it, and you do end up getting some for free anyways. But anyways, that's been added to the game. I don't want to focus on it too much, as I haven't played around too much myself, but it definitely didn't launch exactly as people had hoped. So there was a little bit of something to do there as well. Now let's talk about the story. You heard it at the very start there. That was Bram, who throughout the entire episode gets progressively more drunk at this char party that we're essentially visiting. They do a really good job with the voice acting in this episode. There are some issues where you can tell some side characters are definitely being voiced by the main voice actors, but that's okay, because we're playing a video game, and it's kind of crazy to think how many different secondary characters you run into. I really enjoy the way the story is shown in Guild Wars 2 in general. I think it's a huge upgrade having everything voiced. Certainly, it allows me to really pay attention to the story while focusing on the gameplay without having to pause what I'm doing and click through a bunch of text for 5 minutes, right? So I think that's a really fun thing, and then it adds a lot more character. The reason I shared that first piece of Bram is that I actually was smiling and chuckling at some of the things he was saying, which is pretty rare, because although story can be pretty cool in MMOs, it can be pretty interesting, oftentimes it's not delivered in a very natural way or anything that you would kind of expect it to be delivered in. You don't naturally hear people saying the things that are being said in an MMO. But what Bram was saying, some of the ways he was saying it, some of the humor that was used, I was like, I could see someone saying that. So it kind of got a smile out of me, and that was really enjoyable. The rest of the story is pretty interesting, but kind of boring. Like it's not the most interesting episode in my mind. You're going around talking to the different Char war bands and sort of understanding their relationship to both you and Aureen, the child dragon, but also their kind of chief Char person, and sort of underlying stress and tension that's happening in the Char world. And that kind of starts spiraling out of control, and we find out that a lot of this whole party was kind of a ruse, and at the end of it, the Char chief kind of takes a squadron of Char that are fed up with a lot of things. They are heading off to face off against Jormig. They stole Bram's bow, which we know is quite a important piece of lore. It's the bow that ended up cracking the tooth of Jormig, so we know that it can do damage to Jormig. So there's some interesting topics there as well. But they're going off into the Shiver Peaks, which is quite interesting because we know that the most recent trailer for the new episode shows us in a very snowy area that can only be presumed to be closer to the Shiver Peaks, and us sort of discovering what kind of madness has been waiting for us up there. So it's a very slow start to the season, and I guess that's essentially what you'd want from a prologue, but I don't know how much it satisfies or not. The one thing that I've noticed with these 2 episodes already and the months between them is that, yeah, we've got some story content, yes, we've got some maps, yes, we have some strike missions, but we haven't seen any raids, we haven't seen any fractals. It really is starting to feel like they've moved away from these traditional forms of instance content and are trying to find ways to further expand on the open world gameplay. And as someone who truly enjoys the instant content of raids and stuff like that, it's saddening. I mean, ultimately, I moved away from Guild Wars 2 being my primary game because of this, so it's understandable. I think as someone who plays Guild Wars 2 casually now and enjoys the story, I can enjoy the story exactly the same way I've been enjoying it for years. And as someone who understands that a large part of their player base are people who enjoy the open world and enjoy this kind of story content, I think it's probably a good move for the game in general. It's one of those situations where they're probably satisfying the majority of players, but severely disappointing some people that are sticking out hope to get some more of that raid experience that was so good back in the day. And it's sad because, I mean, if I could have anything, I'd love Guild Wars 2 to completely turn around, say, hey, we are going to be changing the way we do things. We're going to focus purely on raids. We're going to make the most amazing raids, the most amazing story with the most amazing gear system that you've ever seen. We're going to take the agony system. We're going to go into raids with it. There's going to be progression. It's going to, you get the drift. But that's just not what the game is. So I'm very excited to see where they go with this story, and I've kind of stepped away from my thoughts on the raids. Obviously, I'll play whatever content comes out and see how it is, but I don't expect much, and I think that's the best way to be, specifically with a game that you don't pay a monthly sub fee to, and obviously that's something you couldn't do with a game that you do pay, or at least I couldn't do with a game that was paying a sub fee to. I wouldn't feel good paying and then just having a game that I only played part of the content, but yeah. Anyways, this got way too ranty, as it usually does. The story was really well delivered. I'm very interested to see where we go into the next episode. I'm interested to see particularly how quickly we're going to end up dealing with Jormeg. I have a feeling that we might not see him in the next episode and just get some clues about him, but I do hope they kind of tackle things a little bit sooner and really get us dived into the action, because I think things are moving a little bit too slow for me right now, and just knowing the amount of time there could be between different episodes, I'd love to really get into things. But yeah guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.